The Baltimore Ravens finally get rid of that trash head coach, John Harbaugh.
It's about time. 18 years of losing. Has it been 18? I feel like that's way too much.
18 seasons. Yeah, I feel
Crazy.
old.
Crazy.
But no,
dude.
We're going to dive into it. We'll dive into all of the
Mm-hmm.
coaches that have been fired, some of the coaches that have not been fired, one in particular that has surprised me, and a little bit of some quick Week 18 game recaps, but really looking forward to those playoffs because they're here. We made it. The playoffs are here, Adam.
2 inches short, maybe less. Story of my life. It's been a while since he's seen a hole that big.
If you say he's a bust and you end up right, it's not because you're some genius. It's because you got lucky.
How I feel, man? Tell me how I feel, El Freaky.
We prayed that these bird 30s would nourish us and allow us to throw the ball.
They got to go get this bread.
If you suck, you might as well suck with purpose. And so... Here are the coaches that have been fired, let go, moved on from, whatever. Raheem Morris, Kevin Stefanski, Jonathan Gannon, Pete Carroll, John Harbaugh, and then obviously Callahan and Dable were fired in the regular season, which, if my math is correct, leaves 7 coaching vacancies that need to be filled before next season. Jonathan, which was the most surprising to you?
I mean, I'd be lying if I said anything other than Harbaugh. But at the same time, and I'm not saying this is nearly as much of a defense, but I do think it took some people too much off guard. Like, it was certainly on the radar if the Ravens lost that game. And, like, this had been brewing, and there's it's deeper than we even have time to get into it. I mean, we could do a whole deep dive of that across an entire podcast. But certainly Harbaugh's was the most surprising. All of those other coaches, relative to Harbaugh, I mean, Harbaugh's the only coach that was fired that is definitively, bar none, a Hall of Fame head coach.
Yeah.
So, of course, Harbaugh.
Yeah, exactly. But, and I don't know if this is a hot take. I think it makes sense. It's hard to judge whether or not it was a good decision until we figure out who their next head coach is and what that's going to look like in terms of, like, was this the right move? But I do think the Ravens need to be held to a different standard than, let's say, the Raiders, just because they've been so much more successful. And so, and part of it, it's like, well, John Harbaugh set that standard. So, like, but I just think that it makes sense for a team who, in recent years really hasn't gotten it done and kind of failed expectations relative to roster construction, whatever. It's one of those things where it's like,
I was going to say, the bigger thing, I think, and the aspect that takes longer to dive into is, as something I've harped on multiple times just in the season that we've had this podcast so far, is the odd nature of the relationship of communication that Harbaugh and Lamar have had.
Yeah.
And I think that in communicating injuries, expressing timeline about return, multiple different things where it's one thing if that's like a star wide receiver or a star, pass rusher. That's the leader of the franchise. And clearly, I think you don't make a decision like this without Lamar's approval, or at least general, I wash my hands, Pontius Pilate style approach to the situation. And so, I don't know. Harbaugh being fired is something where people are going to inherently judge it, whether in hindsight they say it's the wrong decision or the right decision, based upon who they hire next. And I don't necessarily think that that's a fair way to approach NFL head coaching conversations.
No.
I think that those two things, not in every single case, but a vast majority, should be separate from one another. Because I brought up the statistic before, mainly in the Josh Allen discussion, but it applies here as well. The history of head coach quarterback combos who don't, in their first 5 seasons together, win a Super Bowl is bad. And by bad, I mean it's literally never happened.
Yeah, no. And so I think the reason why this is so shocking is because rarely ever do teams do this. It's kind of the same thinking of like why Tua got a contract extension. Like he did just enough to keep the job. Clearly the Ravens have a higher standard for what the output that they want from their head coach. And, you know, my first impression of that is good for them, right? Like hopefully this doesn't spiral into a situation where they're always looking for the guy and can't find him. But, you know, that's a conversation for a different day. It seems like there was mutual respect by both parties at the end of, you know, this relationship, which is good. It wasn't necessarily a messy breakup, if you will. But I don't know. I think that if they were to keep him, it would have made sense. And I would have been like, yeah, that's a good idea. If they would have, and, you know, but making the decision to let him go, I think also somewhat makes sense. There's a lot of good reasons to, and we'll just have to see how it works out.
And I mean, it's going to be a hot head coaching search because
Yeah.
I don't know how you don't want to go in and have a franchise quarterback, a young, scrappy defense, a defensive culture that's just kind of built into that building. It seems like no matter who's running the show.
Mhm.
And so, as the head coach, I mean, so in my opinion, the Baltimore does get the benefit of, by making this decision, immediately vaulting to the top of the pick for whoever wants to come in as next NFL head coach.
I really like the two guys I'm thinking about is Clint Kubiak and Brian Flores. I think Brian Flores, just because of the ceiling, like they obviously have pieces on that defense. The biggest thing their defense struggled with this year was generating pressure. And obviously that's something that they can help personnel wise, like with personnel changes in the offseason. But Brian Flores' defense just create pressure no matter who it is. And so that's one thing. Like Kyle Hamilton on the back end, as well as part of the blitz packages of a Brian Flores defense makes a lot of sense. We'll see. There's different, you know, he's suing the NFL, so it's not really clear whether or not that's actually. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, I hate to say it as a Chiefs fan, but I think my instant pick, and once again, I've said this for multiple seasons about Buffalo, and it makes just as much sense for Baltimore, is kill two birds with one stone and make Steve Spagnuolo your next head coach.
That's
Steve
a great
Spagnuolo
idea.
owns Lamar Jackson and that Ravens offense.
Oh,
You
that's a really good
move
point.
him out of the AFC picture, and now all of a sudden, the biggest question there, I mean, imagine Steve Spagnuolo's with some of those Ravens pieces that they have on
Kyle
defense.
Hamilton. Oh my gosh.
Yes. And then you basically, the only question is from that point is hiring a half decent offensive play caller. And
Yeah.
I don't know, that's a horrifying coaching staff to play against.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're right. Clint Kubiak was another guy that came to mind more on the offensive side of
Mhm.
things.
Fair.
I think Clint Kubiak won't do what Todd Monken has been doing, which is
That's an
not give the ball to
understatement.
Derrick Henry, right? Like Clint Kubiak runs the ball whether it works or not. And so sometimes I think that the Ravens need a little bit of that in their offensive play calling. But we can move on. I think another guy who, you know, was let go, even though I think he's a good coach, Kevin Stefanski was let go. Early reports was like the Giants want him. They're going to do everything they can to get him. But if John Harbaugh becomes available, then then John Harbaugh's our number one guy. So that was kind of an interesting thing that like reports were out like the Giants want Stefanski unless Harbaugh's available. And then like a day later, Harbaugh became available. And it was like, oh, well, that's not a good look.
Not to, and we can move back to the Stefanski discussion, but how wild would it be to have a interdivision coaching move, Harbaugh to the Browns? I mean, that would
Yeah.
just,
That'd be
I don't know. We can speculate on that later on down the road, but that would be fascinating. But yeah, Stefanski, this is one of those situations where, and I don't like the statistic too much, mainly because it's kind of a gimmicky award of he's multiple time coach of the year winner.
Mhm.
Okay, there we don't need to get into the history of how, and this is not saying that Stefanski is a bad head coach, but that plays no relevancy into whether or not he should have been fired. And the Browns are in a situation where Stefanski was the best head coach that they've had in a long while, but it's almost the far inferior, degenerated version of the Ravens situation where at a certain point, you kind of just have to try something else and to get a fresh start.
What I hated from the Browns' perspective is that they kept their GM, because early reports whenever the Deshaun Watson trade happened was that Stefanski was actually in opposition of it. It kind of reminds me of the Vrabel Titan situation. Like, people don't realize that Stefanski was not particularly in favor of letting Baker Mayfield go and bringing in Deshaun Watson, which single-handedly was the worst personnel move ever in the history of the NFL. That alone, I'd understand this if Kevin Stefanski was a main voice behind that, because that alone is a fireable offense when it's like the worst move ever.
Well, it's a fireable offense.
Weird to me.
And it's also, just for some context, probably the second worst move in just like American sporting history, besides like the Babe Ruth trade, which cursed the Red Sox franchise for like 3/4 of a century.
Right.
And so, and that's just like a poor move in general in terms of ethical side of things. Definitively the worst thing done by an American sports franchise. So
I'm just at the point where I can assume that any move the Browns make is going to be a bad one. And so them keeping their GM and firing their head coach just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
The question is really more so whether it will be done or dumb or just straight up unethical. That's the difference. It's not between a good Browns move and a bad Browns move. Is this going to be poor on the football field, or like, is this actively going to require penance?
That's the standard for a good Browns move. Is it ethically okay? It has nothing to do with what it leads to on the field. Oh my gosh.
But no, and that opens, you're 100% right about the GM situation, both in the specifics of it and broadly. I'm a big believer, not in every case, there's exceptions to every rule, but of the timeline thing with head coaches and GMs, unless it's like an eternally entrenched GM situation where it's like, it's a guy who's been there for over 2 decades, whatnot. I think separating the two of those across 2 timelines, either if it's a GM that comes in after a head coach, the coach can kind of walk all over him, or if it's a head coach that comes in with a pre-established GM, the GM can kind of walk all over on him. And this is a kind of a studied thing in terms of NFL team dynamics and leadership. So another poor Browns move from that perspective, but just in terms of generally moving on from Stefanski, I get it. You kind of have to after sustained mediocrity.
Yeah, I feel kind of the same way with Pete Carroll, even though it was a 1-year sample size. I think a lot of people, just because of who Pete Carroll is, kind of were like, what? You didn't even give him a chance? But he showed nothing. Like, it was the worst team in the league. They have the number 1 pick. Like, it was supposed to be a short little, like a bridge coach. Like, he was Alex Smith. Right? Like, he was the bridge. It didn't work, so why give it another year? That makes a lot of sense to me. Raheem Morris got fired. It's kind of funny, the butterfly effect. I saw this meme where it was like, if the Falcons would have beaten the Jets, like, the Falcons would have won the NFC South, and Raheem Morris would still have his job. So kind of crazy there.
100%. I think the Raheem Morris firing actually did catch me a little bit off guard just because of how hot they ended the season. So purely in prisoner of the moment situation, because when they win like 4 of their last 5 or something like that, or maybe 4 of their last 6.
Yeah.
So it was, I really thought that he would be, apologies for the noise there. I really thought that he would be fired mid-season, and once he wasn't, I was kind of anticipating that he was going to come back, and they fired him. I mean, I don't want to
Black
laugh
Sunday.
at people's jobs, but when it's a Black Sunday, it was pretty funny, the fact that he was like seen, and this was reported directly, this is a rumor, he was seen like hugging the ownership group and the GM and like clearly had a smile on his face. And within 15 minutes, they had announced that he was fired.
Oh
like that's a reported thing. You can look
Raheem.
that up from Falcons and, Atlanta beat reporters. So I felt bad for Raheem in that moment. But at the same time, in the grand scheme of things, it's been a disappointing tenure. And you do have pieces on that team, despite the quarterback questions. And so
I think that's the biggest thing, is the fact that they've been able to beat top teams in both the AFC and the NFC, and yet at the same time have lost to the Jets, lost to the Panthers twice, which basically eliminated them, 2 months before the playoffs started mathematically because of the three-way tie thing, even though they ended up with a three-way tie. And so it's like those small, in the grand scheme of things, those few losses made the difference for their season. And so it's like, it's not a terrible move.
It
We'll
is
see
what
where they
it is.
go. The last one, which we can talk about just briefly, Jonathan Gannon. I feel like this is actually another situation where I feel like he's a good head coach. It's just, they're clearly moving on from Kyler. They're clearly starting over. And so,
yeah, this is a full purge.
Complete
There's nothing much to say.
Blank slate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay
fine
with that. I'm fine with that.
It sucks if you're a Cardinals fan, but at the very least, I mean, it sucks less the day after it happens than it does the day before. Like, once you officially know as a fan of a team, my franchise has bit the bullet, they've taken the cyanide pill, and they are just completely starting over, there is a catharsis in that.
Yeah. And then I think next we can talk about the coaches who weren't fired. Got to throw Zach Taylor in there. Although there were reports that T. Higgins and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase have both defended him to the ownership. So that actually makes sense. I'm one of those guys where it's like, I get mad at Zach Taylor just like every other Bengals fan. But if those three guys are like, let's keep him, it's like, okay, you got me.
Which, I mean, I won't get into this too much. As I've said multiple times in the past, I don't think that's the best way to run an NFL organization, but I
know you don't.
I am completely sympathetic to your perspective on that, to be clear.
Next is Mike McDaniels. Really interesting. Clearly Tua is going to be in the market, but
this is something that it was kind of, we didn't really talk about in the moment because there's so much else going on in the season.
Yeah.
But this was basically confirmed that he wasn't going to be fired over a month ago. But, I mean, obviously, this is the topic of conversation, but we've known for a little bit that he wasn't going to be fired unless something drastic occurred. And so, honestly, at this point, even though I was so encouraging for him to be fired at the start of the season, at this point, I get it. If you're going to bite the bullet on Tua and just completely start over, Mike McDaniels isn't a bad head coach. And so, I don't know. It's a complex situation. The Dolphins are in a terrible space. But I guess I understand saying, hey, we're in a terrible space, not necessarily really because of Mike McDaniels, although I still have locker room questions. So why not just keep him through the complete overhaul?
Yeah, and I've just been saying, I think for the same locker room issues, before the season even started, my whole perspective on Mike McDaniels was he needs to go be an offensive coordinator because he will be a great offensive coordinator for a coach where that's his strength, right? Like, I actually, a good example I can think of, because John Morrison was fired, is the Lions. Like, imagine Mike McDaniel spending a year or two with Dan Campbell in the Lions and just picking up on those types of things that clearly Dan Campbell has solidified. Like, I've never seen a team more fired up in the final week of the season when they've been eliminated from the playoffs than the Lions again in that Bears game. And so
is 100% true.
That's a culture thing. That's a Dan Campbell thing. That's the kind of thing that I feel like Mike McDaniels needs in his career to then come back as a head coach and can really take off. But the last guy, and this can kind of transition us into the big matchups from Week 18, Todd Bowles. Right? It seems like reports are that Todd Bowles is staying. He still has years on his contract, but
I don't get it. I just don't.
I don't either.
I really don't. I think that there's almost not much to say. If the person watching this right now is an NFL fan, you know exactly why he should be fired and probably think that he should be. I don't really understand what the plan is for Tampa Bay going into next season. I don't understand why you would think that maybe except for the difference of injury luck. But at the same point, it's like, what are you returning to then? Because let's say the NFC South is bad again, which it always is. And then you're the 4 seed again and you lose to the 5 seed.
Yeah.
What is it?
I'm with you. It also just is very clear to me, at least. Like I don't know, who am I? But part of me is like, when I'm watching what happened with the Bucs, after the bye, what I saw is a team that was being outcoached by the other team defensively. And offensively, Baker Mayfield couldn't find a rhythm, even though they got more healthy. And so from that perspective, it's like, I think there's a clear common denominator here. But I think we're on the same page with Todd Bowles. We can move on to the Bucs-Panthers game, where the Bucs won 16-14, and it did not matter. Which is
like
really
I said,
funny.
This was the objectively funniest outcome of
Yes.
this whole ordeal, is that the Buccaneers win and it doesn't matter at all. I do think, I don't know, it just, despite the win in the moment, the Buccaneers still felt uninspired. It really felt to me more like the Panthers just kind of showed that they were inspired. They're just not that good of a football team or a roster. But like they had enough heart that the football gods shined upon them. I mean, if you look at this roster,
way more.
they just objectively do, and that's part of the Todd Bowles discussion. But they just objectively did look like they cared more. It didn't matter, and yet they still made it to the playoffs. And the Buccaneers, but pointing to the fact that they actually have a half-decent roster, just kind 100%. Of lazily fumbled their way into a win and just go out with a whimper. I don't know.
The one thing I'll say about this game that I just have to say is this was a horribly officiated game, right? Like,
yes, it was.
And it started in the third quarter. So the Panthers missed a field goal. Then there was that backward pass play where they ruled it as an incomplete pass with Rico Dowdle. It was in his hands and they blew it dead. Then the ref came back and was like, well, actually, no, it was a backward pass and the ball went out of bounds. It didn't go out of bounds, first off, if you were watching. It was still in Rico Dowdle's hands. Whatever, if that was a misspeak, whatever. The point is like, you don't really know what could have happened, right? Like, obviously, that could have been a situation. Rico Dowdle runs back 10 yards, and it's even worse for the Panthers. But then it got worse, because during that same drive, there was the Tremble, where Tommy Tremble's helmet was thrown off, and there was no flag.
Yes.
And then there was the offensive pass interference against T-Mac. That was just awful.
I mean, everything was going against the Panthers, including themselves and how good they are at football. But I'm happy for the Panthers. I'm happy that they lost and made it into the playoffs.
Me too.
That's such a wonderful ending to the season for this team. And you never know, any given Sunday or Saturday when they play.
Yeah. No. The next game we can talk about, Seahawks 49ers 13-3, which, the Seahawks are my favorite team to watch in the NFL. They're going to be my favorite team just because of that defense, man. And that was kind of the story of this game. It was defense.
It was such an impressive defensive performance from Seattle. I mean, it was just, they couldn't get, they being the 49ers, could not get anything going. I mean, it was just at certain points it was shocking that an offense that, I mean, the 49ers punted the ball more in the first half than they did for the entire month of December combined. I mean, that speaks to something right there. So
yeah, for sure.
Seattle is going to be solely held back by Sam Darnold in the playoffs. That's the only. It's a 53-man roster, and I'm good about 52 of them.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think it is just so impressive how good the Seahawks defense has been. The big play at the end of the game in the fourth quarter, the 49ers finally got a drive going. And McCaffrey dropped the ball. It landed in Drake Thomas's hand, and that turnover kind of sealed the deal for them. It was a kind of a pass that was behind McCaffrey. Like, he should have caught it, but it is what it is. There's not really much to say other than it makes me feel really good that the Seahawks got the number 1 seed, because I made that video talking about how the Seahawks should be considered contenders right before they played the Rams the first time. And there was a lot of hate from different people saying like, no, they're not, blah, 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 blah. They're the 1 seed, so everyone can suck it.
I'm happy for you, Adam. Great game. 49ers fans who were licking their chops at having universal home field advantage all the way through the Super Bowl. They can suck it. So
yeah, exactly.
The NFC is filled with some powerhouses.
It sure is. It sure is. Speaking of not that, Steelers Ravens, the game of who wanted to lose more.
The game of who wanted to lose more, but at the same time, like, one of the best regular season games possible to end on. Just consider not just the stakes, but also an entertaining football game. The last 2 drives, really the last 3 drives, the Ravens drive, the Steelers. Yeah, just the fourth quarter. That's
really
good. The fourth quarter.
Ridiculous. Here's the game flow. So at 8:42 left in the fourth quarter, Lamar threw a touchdown pass to Flowers. It was one of those like vintage Lamar moments, like he splits a double team or like 2 guys trying to tackle him, runs around, and everyone is like, holy crap, look at the yards, run for 4 yards for the first down. And there's Zay Flowers in the backfield or down the field, just wide open, and Lamar throws a beautiful pass to him.
Open.
Yeah. What was funny about that is that play was just wrong in like every way imaginable. So like at the beginning of that play, because I watched it a few times and I was like, what is going on? So the Steelers send like an all-out blitz basically, and one of the Steelers defenders was purposely left unblocked just because they didn't have the guys. Another one of those defenders was completely whiffed on, right? So that's first. So Lamar Jackson had instant pressure, but yet Lamar Jackson was able to escape that instant pressure. Then it was, okay, we'll run for the first down. Wait a minute. Zay Flowers is streaking down the field, so he's going to throw it deep. Poor Patrick Queen, because of that all-out blitz, was left one-on-one streaking with Zay Flowers. And it's like, well, what are you supposed to do? It was just the most ridiculous play I've ever seen. But after that, Pittsburgh drove down the field, really nice drive, used a lot of time. But in that touchdown drive, specifically in the red zone, because of like miscommunication, at home, by the way, they used the rest of their timeouts. And so now it's like, this is a close game. And Aaron Rodgers repeatedly was trying to use timeouts or used all of his timeouts. They still got a touchdown. So this is now 2:20 left in the game. It's 3rd and 1. The Ravens have the ball. And it's a repeat of the first Ravens touchdown where the Steelers are anticipating the run. You know, the Ravens are in a heavy package. And Jalen Ramsey just like doesn't follow the guy streaking by him, wide open for a touchdown. Then with 55 seconds left in the game, the Steelers have the ball. Rodgers has a deep pass to Austin for the touchdown.
It's the classic Rodgers fist pump.
Exactly. The like level up, like the Super Mario Bros.
Oh yeah,
level up. That was me trying to impersonate the noise that happens, but it was a
really good
impersonation.
one.
Poor Chidobe Awuzie just tripped. And then right after that, this is something that I noticed. I was like, the Steelers don't have any timeouts. And Mitchell runs the ball on the kickoff back to the 50. So it's like, holy crap,
Really quick,
they only need...
quick. Before you set this up, I just have to pause completely. This is so stupid. It is hilarious to me that you are able to effortlessly pronounce Chidobe Awuzie, and you flub some of the most basic names that there are in the National Football League, but Chidobe Awuzie just flows off the tongue
I always
for you.
mispronounce the Robert Sala or Robert Sala, and then Todd Bowles. I never remember his first name. I say
You called him
but
3
Todd.
different names last episode. It was awesome.
Yeah. It's because Chidobe Awuzie used to play for the Bengals. That's why.
Fair.
He was a really good DB for the Bengals before he tore his ACL. Anyway, so the Ravens start off this drive at the 50-yard line. They have one nice completion, and then everything sucks. Right, like there's penalties, there's bad drops.
Illegal formation, which was, I know some people were like, "Oh, how can you make the call in that situation?" It was blatantly terrible.
So clear. Ronnie Stanley
and it's
tried to get an advantage.
It's also something where, like, a Jawan Taylor can sometimes get away with that because he's a tall man and has a long torso.
Yeah.
This situation, a much stouter man, and so with how far back he was, like, his helmet wasn't even at the butt of the center, much less like the waistline. It was
by himself, dude. He was in the slot. He was in the slot. Then right before, on third down, Lamar Jackson rolls around, scrambles, throws to a wide open Hopkins, and throws it right over his head because DeAndre decided, I'm just going to stop instead of running. Bad miscommunication. At that point, it becomes 4th and 7, and I'm like, this might be the game, until Isaiah Likely makes an incredible catch to the 25. And then you're like, okay, the game is over. They're going to, obviously set up where whatever field marker they want the ball to be on for the field goal.
And I get we've been spoiled, may not be the right word, but overconfident in kickers because of some of these, Cam Little's, 60 million yards or whatnot. But I was watching this with some people, and as soon as Likely made that catch, they were like, oh, game's over. And I was like, the real question here is actually, because 44-yarders, not a gimme, certainly with the way that the wind was whipping. An under-discussed thing, the Ravens had 12 seconds left and a timeout. No one has been talking about the fact they could have easily ran one more play just to try, to get it. You could run the ball. That was the thing, is the Ravens ran the play immediately afterwards, and the 2 yards didn't make a difference. Where Lamar runs to the hash mark that the kicker wants the ball at and takes a knee, loses 2 yards, whatever. You could have easily just put Derrick Henry in the game 100%. And run an angled run in the direction of the hash mark that you wanted on. And he probably, because they're going to be playing relative prevent to try and prevent a pass play, probably pick up another 5 yards and get this thing to like a 36, 37-yard field goal.
And here's what I want to point out, and because I actually have that exact thing written down. Once again, the Ravens, and it's funny because if you look at the rushing splits, it's hysterical. Look, Derrick Henry had something like 10 to 15 rushes in the first quarter, then had like 5 or something in the second half. And it slowly went down and down. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, in that moment, do you trust Derrick Henry to be able to make the determination that he can get down or get out of bounds in time, or will have the space to get the touchdown? Because it's not a gimme. The weather conditions did matter. I'm 100% on your side. Loop ended up missing the field goal. No one, if you're a Ravens fan and you commented something mean on his page, you're a despicable human being, because it's just his job.
Yeah.
He made a mistake. But no. And the game was over. And with that, the Steelers, Mike Tomlin magic. He made that barely inconvenient sacrifice to the football gods. And yet again, He is in this playoffs to lose.
I do love the bit of Mike Tomlin performing devil magic, but like half-heartedly. Like, you can have my third-born son.
A mildly inconvenient sacrifice to then let him be in the playoffs and lose in the first round.
But yeah, I mean, really, more than a Mike Tomlin magic, it was Aaron Rodgers magic, and that was legitimately fun to watch. We get one more Aaron Rodgers playoff run, and who knows? We'll be talking about this here in just a moment, but maybe he can pull something out of, the darkness.
Yeah, no, and I will say, it was obviously a close game. The Ravens had the ability, like they were in position to win it. Who knows if Kyle Hamilton would have been back for a playoff matchup? Without Kyle Hamilton, the Ravens, without a doubt, were not going to make any sort of anything in the playoffs. Like, I think that the PRP or playoff run potential of the Ravens dropped below the Steelers' PRP as soon as Kyle Hamilton left that game, in the case that he's not playing. And so...
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I
don't know.
I mean,
whatever
anytime you have a quarterback like Lamar, it's hard for me to definitively say that. But you're not wrong. This was certainly a team that probably had a divisional matchup. They probably could have won a wild card game. Could have. But maybe. But with that in mind, we can move right into these NFL playoff matchups.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to start with the AFC or the NFC first? Oh, actually, before we get into that, why don't you explain our point system, the game, and how it changes for the playoffs?
So here's the thing, folks. We do a little game around here where we predict every single game that occurs across the NFL season. Typically, in the regular season, as we've been playing all year, you predict a game, you get 1 point if you get it right, 0 if you get it wrong. You do get a little thing called upset alert each week, in which case you can pick a team that's an underdog by 2.5 or more points to either cover the spread and get 3 points, or outright win and get 3 points plus however much the spread was. Adam, are you ready to hear the end of the regular season point totals?
Let's do it.
I have 186 points, and you have 187.
That's crazy.
I was leading by 2 going in.
Yeah.
And we split on 3 games, and you won all 3 of them.
What were they? Did you pick the 49ers and the Ravens?
I picked the 49ers, I picked the Ravens, and I picked the Packers to beat the Vikings despite resting everyone, because I just had a gut feeling about that one, which was stupid, but... Man, if just one of those had gone my way.
So the playoffs, it's kind of one of those things where it's like halftime 0-0. Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. With the playoffs, we should say, because not all of them, but because of how close most of these games will be and due to the select few of them, we will not be doing upset alert. But each game is worth 3 points or 0 points if you don't get it. So can't lose points in this scenario, but these games are worth triple.
Yeah. NFC or AFC first?
Let's start off right with the AFC. Let's get into it.
Okay.
So you
want to do the 2-7 matchup first?
The 2-7 matchup. The Patriots hosting the Chargers.
Yeah.
I don't envision a world in which the Chargers can win. And at the same time, maybe it's just because playoff football's back in the air, I feel really shaky about being overly confident in the Patriots.
Mm-hmm. I'm right there with
I don't
you.
know.
This is all of these. Basically, there's 2 matchups in each conference. 3 guesses which ones that I feel really good about.
Yes.
This is obviously not one of those matchups, right? And so the first thing I think about, obviously, is the quarterback. Drake May is an unknown. Justin Herbert is a known and generally pretty negative within the playoffs. It's a different circumstance. It's a different year. But on the same note, like, it's one of those things where what makes it tough is the fact that the clear place that teams can take advantage of the Chargers, that being their defensive line and their pass rush, is not an inherent strength of the Patriots. And
That's what I
so
was
I
going
don't
to
know
say,
what
thinking.
to do with that.
That's what I've been thinking about this game, because the obvious weakness of the Chargers is their offensive line.
Right.
And yet the Patriots don't really have that inspiring of a pass rush by any means.
Mm-hmm.
I maybe the offensive line of the Chargers is so banged up that it doesn't matter, but I'm not going to take that on as a face value trump card where Justin Herbert's going to be under pressure 50% of the time and it just doesn't matter, even if Drake May has a mediocre game. I will, however, give extremely favorable points to the Patriots due to the outdoor Gillette Stadium environment, and it's a California team coming to play them. I do think that plays right into the Patriots' hands. That's the benefit of home field advantage.
Yeah.
I am picking the Patriots. That's very clear, but I do conceive of a world in which Justin Herbert actually has time to throw the ball, and this turns into not like a 44-41 type of game shootout, but maybe in the, low to mid 30s. And if it turns into a shootout, it can be anyone's game depending on the breaks. That's the world in which the Chargers win this game, is a shootout.
Yeah.
Any other way, the Chargers don't win a slugfest. They won't.
No, I don't think so either. I'm also picking the Patriots, and there's two main reasons. The first one is because I think the Patriots defense is going to be able to stop the run and make it almost a non-factor in this game. And I think that even if you don't have the most inspiring pass rush, if you eliminate the run for the Chargers and they're forced to pass at a certain volume, it almost doesn't matter that disadvantage that is their offensive line is going to poke its head out regardless of the fact. And the second thing is, because of that, I also think that Vrabel in the second matchup against the Bills did a great job, an excellent job limiting Josh Allen in the first half. What brought the Bills back in that game was their ability to run the ball. I don't think that the Chargers will have the same success that the Bills did within that game. Defensively, I think that the Patriots offense is going to be able to run the ball. And I think that that's going to be able to set a floor that the Patriots offense is going to be able to run the ball. And so I think that the Patriots are going to win in the trenches. And here's the truth. If there's one thing you know about me, it's that I love the trenches. And I think that if you have any doubts or if a matchup is close, I'm going to lead to the team that I think will win in the trenches, and that's the Patriots.
Yes. Despite what I was saying about the Patriots not having the most, lethal pass rush, I still pick the Patriots in the trenches overall.
I agree.
And in that case, that is a deciding factor that removes any hesitancy that I have, although it's a complete unknown with Drake May in the playoffs. This game could be the start of a Drake May narrative.
Yes.
It could also be the start of a Drake May legacy. And so, in that sense, it's going to be fun. It will be an exciting game to watch. I mean, he could come out there and, as great of a season as he's had, be a playoff riser and throw for like 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. And we're just like, whoa, we are witnessing a takeoff.
Yeah. Or just like big plays in big moments. I think that, and the biggest thing here too to keep in mind is that basically what I'm saying is that if you're a team that has a pass rush that's like top 5, I don't envision a world where the Chargers ever beat a team like that. So basically, against the Texans and against the Broncos, I'm saying I will pick those teams 10 times out of 10.
Yes.
It's a little bit more complicated, but I think the Patriots have enough. But we can move on to, I think, the hardest game to predict in all of the playoffs this upcoming weekend. Bills-Jaguars. What are your initial thoughts on this game?
This probably was my hardest to pick.
Yeah.
I agree with you there. I'll just say, just so it's out in the open and we can get into analysis, my gut reaction, and I'm sticking with it, I'm taking the Jaguars.
Okay. Wow.
I am picking Jacksonville in this matchup. I think Jacksonville has a home field advantage, obviously. I think that crowd is going to be loud and raucous. I think that the Jaguars are playing the best football at the best possible time. And the biggest key of that is that Trevor Lawrence is playing the best possible football of his career at the best possible time. This team is humming. And so it's kind of one of those situations where this is not an anti-Bills thing by any stretch. I just genuinely think that the Jaguars are operating at a legitimate Super Bowl contender level right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm also going with my gut, and my gut says Bills. Here's the thing. I think that there are a lot of advantages statistically and based on trends that the Jaguars have. The key to this game is going to be turnovers, because that's been the key to both of these teams and their seasons, right? And the Bills this year, the games that you look at and you're like, what is going on? Specifically the Falcons game, it was the story of turnovers. And you almost can predict a Bills game more. And like, you know, obviously you can generally predict most games by looking at the turnover margin, but specifically the Bills, like it's at a rate that's higher than most teams. And so, but here's the thing. I can't pick against Josh Allen in the wild card. That's really what my gut is. And it's just like, and I'm even one of those guys. Like, I am on the opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to the spectrum of how much a win should contribute to, or how much should, is winning a QB stat. But I think this is going to be a close game. I think the Jaguars are going to look really good in the first half, just like how all Bills games are. But in the second half, the Bills are going to unleash Josh Allen. Sean McDermott's going to make enough adjustments. It's just my gut. I think I'm going with the Bills. That being said, I am pretty much convinced, and I will stick to this, the winner of this game is going to win the AFC.
I also have a game involving the Jaguars, hypothetically past this point, that means winning the AFC. It's just not in this round. In my playoff bracket that I have created for myself.
Basically what I'm saying is, if I'm wrong and the Jaguars beat the Bills, I'm picking the Jaguars.
Okay.
Through it.
I'll let you know right now, I'm picking the Jaguars to the Super Bowl. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
But if the Bills win, same thing. Like this game in my mind determines the winner of the AFC.
In terms of an in-game prediction, I really like this, and I was actually just about to say the same thing, which is I don't sports bet, but I would bet real money and think it would be a pretty good bet, depending on the odds that you can find, that the Jaguars will be leading going into halftime.
Oh, 100%. 100%. There's no doubt.
The question is that you posed is, like, I'm imagining a world in which the Jaguars have a 10-point lead going into the half, and in the blink of an eye in the third quarter, the Bills tie it up.
Yeah.
And then it comes down to the fourth quarter. Momentum will be on the Bills' side going into the fourth quarter, tie game. Who wants it more?
And that's where I think the Bills that's where I think the Bills have an advantage. Because while I don't believe that winning is a QB stat inherently, and you have to apply so much context in each individual moment, you can't apply it over a broad spectrum. With that being said, I do think that quarterback level is a massive indicator as to whether or not, you win close games. And in a close game, I just trust Josh Allen more than Trevor Lawrence, which obviously is nothing against Trevor Lawrence, because Josh Allen is at worst the third best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, 100%. So we were both in line here with this being the closest and hardest game to predict of this upcoming wild card weekend, and we both went with our guts in opposite directions.
Yeah.
We can move on to the final AFC matchup of Wild Card Weekend, that being Texans at Steelers.
I have the Texans.
I have the Texans as well. I don't feel incredible about it.
Yeah.
But
I don't need
that Texans defense might be the best in the NFL.
Yes.
In fact, I've been it's been hyperbolic but I somehow over the last 2 days fell into a Texans defensive algorithm agenda of like, if you look into some of the analytics, this is like one of the greatest defenses in NFL history.
Yeah.
And I was like,
it's pretty insane.
They have some interesting. I'm not going to say I've drank the Kool-Aid yet, but they have some pretty interesting analytics on their side. Look into it. Yeah, I think that is the difference in this game. I think Aaron Rodgers can actually play a half-decent game, which typically has correlated to Steelers' victories, and it still won't matter because I'm actually the X factor of this game is TJ Watt.
Mm-hmm.
TJ Watt
100%.
is the X factor and the best chance that the Steelers have if he could single-handedly win in the game. Yeah.
I have this in my notes, specifically if TJ Watt can force an interception. Because TJ Watt has been known to do that in big moments, specifically. Tip ball, interception. That's the type of thing that can lose the Texans this game. I think that the Texans have enough offense that they can score. I would be shocked if the Steelers score more than one touchdown in this game. Like, that's where I'm at.
That's a bold prediction, but that's entirely fair. I mean, just with any NFL game, between playoff teams, that's hard to say, but I don't necessarily disagree with that. I really think the Steelers' only way to win this game is to punch the Texans in the mouth from the start, and the Texans are just completely rattled for the entire rest of the game. That's the only way. Like, if the Texans are just up by if the Texans are leading at halftime, the Steelers have no chance.
Yeah, no. And the reason I'm saying that, though, is because look at how the Steelers move the ball. It's screens. It's the run game. Let me tell you, the Texans are not just good because of their star players. It's because every single player on that team is disproportionately fast for the amount of strength that they're able to generate on a hit. Like, every single one. Like, this is not a team that you can just like consistently win through screens, because they're not going to take bad angles. They're not going to miss tackles. Like, they're not going to do that type of thing. Like, that's what separates them, by the way, from teams like the Broncos and the Seahawks, because they are the best at that specific thing. Like, every single one of their players can make an open field tackle. Every single one of their players can lay the boom on someone. And so it's just like, I just don't see the way that the Steelers have been playing recently as a way for like generating any offense. The only reason I'm saying they'll score any touchdown at all is because maybe there's a world where DK Metcalf can moss a cornerback one-on-one in the right matchup.
Yeah. That's
it.
Okay. Our decision has been made on this game. We can move to the NFC.
Yeah.
Looking at the 2-7 matchup here, this was the second hardest game for me to pick of this entire wildcard weekend. Bears hosting the Packers, a classic, divisional rematch, a third game of the season after a season split between the two teams. Just kind of heavenly NFL football that we might be about to witness in terms of a slugfest, not even necessarily offensively, but just a brutal fight to the death between these divisional rivals. I went with the Bears, and it's really purely a momentum thing. And I get it, the Bears lost the last game of the season, but Jordan Love hasn't played football in quite a while. I have no clue how much rust is going to be there, how healthy he's going to be. Chicago's going to be so loud. Oh my goodness.
No, I'm with you. So you highlighted exactly what my main determining factor for winning this game. And it's not about momentum in terms of like win-losses. It's more of like from a macro perspective. This is a team that hasn't been in the playoffs in a long time. This is a team that has a new head coach that is absolutely lit a fire under his guys. This is a team that had the number 1 overall pick with this generational quarterback, and finally they're starting to see success. Finally, it's only been, 2 years, but whatever. Versus a team that, if it wasn't for the 7th seed being added to the playoffs, wouldn't have made the playoffs in the last 4 years. And where the vibes are at almost kind of a low, like where Matt LaFleur's coaching job is being questioned. And I just think that I just think that matters. Like, I think that Chicago is really going to want it more. It does matter.
The funny thing is, and I entirely agree with you, Adam, we are setting, like, it in spite of that, or not in spite of that, because of that, it would be the most Bears thing in the world to lose the game.
True.
Like, but you're setting this
Bears,
up,
man.
Those are the old Bears. Here's what I'll say, just in terms of like my specific in-game predictions of the potentials. The only way that the Bears lose this game is a pure heartbreaking thing that happens.
Oh yeah,
like
double doink,
like a double doink, or like a pick six, or like they're driving the ball down the field about to like ice the game, and then like a tipped ball pick six happens, like something crazy, like a lateral play, a Music City Miracle level lateral, end of game scenario where the Packers score. Like, that is the way that the Bears lose this game.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's just, again, and we talked about this when Micah Parsons went out, the Packers are now last year's Packers without, like, that's it. Like, they're just last year's Packers.
And
so
Jordan Love is more banged up, and they don't have Christian Watson.
Yep, it's a really good point, Jonathan. I forgot about all of those things. Yeah, no. And for all those reasons, I'm picking the Bears. I think they're going to win in the trenches as well. That's the biggest thing. That's why I mentioned the Micah Parsons thing.
Yeah,
their line has been cooking.
We move on to... It wasn't that hard for me to predict, but it might be the game I'm the least confident in picking. I pretty confidently picked the 49ers.
Oh, okay.
But
wow, that's funny because I'm right there with you, but I picked the Eagles.
Really? Okay. Because I very confidently picked the 49ers, and I was like, the Eagles could very easily and clearly win this game just based on their pure roster strength. I mean, I'm interested to hear your Eagles case, because this just seems like it's not complete 1-to-1. This just seems like a clear repeat of 2 seasons ago, where they start off the season relatively fantastic. They weren't like 2 seasons ago, like the longest team left in the NFL undefeated. And then the second half of the season is just utter despair, even when they win games. Yeah. And they go out with a whimper in the wild card round. That's what I'm predicting.
Because the defense was the worst secondary in the league when that happened. And now they have a great secondary. Like, because there was a crucial part of their defense that was the worst of everyone. And now it is one of the best
this season was not as bad as it was 2 seasons ago.
The real analysis is, when we look at this season, they've consistently beat teams that are in the playoffs. Like, they've consistently beat contenders. And the way that they've done that is a way that I don't think that the 49ers are immune to. Low-scoring slugfest, where all it takes is where the difference in the game is just one big play. Because, I've talked about consistently how the Eagles' offense is not sustainable, not even a little bit. And I still think that's true. The problem is that they are really good also at the unsustainable stuff, like the deep plays, the long run game, the explosive plays. It's not sustainable in terms of winning the NFC and being a clear-cut contender. I'm not going to pick them to go to the Super Bowl, I don't imagine. But I think in this matchup against the 49ers, that is injured, that is banged up, that their defense is going to be able to win in the trenches, stop the run game, limit Christian McCaffrey, limit Brock Purdy. It's going to be a low-scoring, like 13-7 game, and the Eagles are going to be able to just the difference in the game is going to be a Saquon Barkley 50-yard run. Just like how it was against the Rams, just like how it was against the the Rams, it was even closer. It was blocked field goals. Just like how it was against the the Lions, just how it was against the Packers, like all of those things. And so, yeah, no, I think like it's just this feels primed to be a classic Eagles game where they play a good
Yeah.
team.
What if the Eagles don't score 10 points, though?
Oh,
That's
well,
my
then, yeah,
concern.
I think the 49ers.
No, I know.
I'm with
Well,
you.
I
It's
know.
just like they haven't done that. They've
I
always
know,
at least
I
had
know.
1 or 2 explosive plays.
That's 100% fair. That's what I'm saying. I was looking for you to convince me. I'm going to stick with my pick, but I don't feel good about this either way. I think that this will not be a fun football game to watch, other than the fact that it's playoff football, and so I will watch it, of course. I'm going to stick with... I really, actually, here's what I'll say. Kyle Shanahan, Nick Sirianni.
Nick Sirianni. Okay, I like that. I agree.
That's my analysis.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say is I think that people have been a little bit... that I think people have gone too far when it comes to their Eagles analysis because of how uninspiring the offenses looked. The reason why I'm saying that is because I think that there is a very specific type of team that is able to score against the Eagles. And the only team in the in the playoffs that has that ability, I think, is the Rams.
That's a great point.
And the Bears. Ironically, like, I think what the Bears showed the blueprint in that game on Black Friday against the Eagles, because, and I talked about it in the moment, Vic Fangio's whole thing is like, if we can go in base packages and with our guys just beat you, we're going to win the game, right? Like, if we can not put an extra guy on the line of scrimmage and keep them out, if we can not blitz you and still generate pressure, we're going to create huge advantages in the secondary. Now, the Bears said, oh, wait, but our interior offensive line is better than Jalen Carter.
Jalen Carter, yeah.
Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. And we're going to be able to run at those guys and the linebacking core, Jahad Campbell and Zach Bond. And that worked. There are not a lot of offensive lines in the league that can do that, and certainly not the 49ers. And so I think that they just have an advantage in the trenches. It's going to be a low-scoring game. They're going to get 1 or 2 explosive plays on that battered-up defense, and that's going to be the difference in the game.
The X factor really is then, because I don't disagree with that analysis, is Christian McCaffrey. Can the 49ers
100%.
establish a run game to keep those offensive linemen a little bit on their toes and less geared with their ears pinned back on Brock Purdy?
The last thing I'll say is they haven't really done that all year, except for
100%.
Like twice. We can move on. Another easy matchup, man.
Yeah, give me the Panthers.
Dang it, you stole my pick.
No. Carolina
it
Panthers,
can't happen
you
again.
Lose your way into the playoffs, and oh boy, you are about to get molested.
It can't happen again. There's no way that they beat the Rams again.
Have stranger things happened? Yes. All I'm saying is that, and I haven't watched the last 2 seasons of Stranger Things, but a game in which, as much of a Rams, fan as I am, not that I'm a Rams fan, but I'm a fan of good football and good head coaching and good quarterback play, and the Rams have all 3 of those. The Panthers beating the Rams would probably be an objectively better of an experience to watch as an underdog than like the entire season 5 of Stranger Things, from what I've heard about it. That 3 hours of NFL broadcast would be more commercials included, would be a more entertaining piece of media to consume. It turns
out this whole time that Bryce Young, it's actually kind of funny because there is like you could make a case based on Bryce Young's statistics that he would be a playoff riser. Like how in big moments, like he like 4th down, like the way that they won games this year, specifically against the Rams, was the turnovers, obviously, but then also like 4th down touchdowns. Like, what if Bryce Young this whole time is like this crazy playoff riser? And it's like, if this team can manage to somehow hobble into the playoffs, it's game over.
Bryce Young might have the craziest, not good to incredibly clutch ratio of all time. Like, his clutch levels compared to how mediocre he is generally is insane.
It's
like
ridiculous.
What if Bryce Young approaches like Nick Foles level of, oh my goodness, this guy just.
That's what I'm saying. But like,
He's not good.
I want it to be like Jimmy Butler in the NBA, where it's not like, oh, he just becomes good. It's like, no, he becomes Michael Jordan.
Like, he just it's
and not just for one season. Not just like one season of great, like over a career of bringing the outmatched Heat to the finals every time they make it.
I know this is an NFL podcast, but I want you to know you legitimately just gave me chills reminding me of that Jimmy Butler finals run in 2023. One of the greatest runs of all time.
Dude, he turned into the greatest basketball player ever. What if that's Bryce Young? What if Bryce Young this entire time is, just is going to turn into Tom Brady every time he gets in the playoffs? Until that happens, though, I'm picking the Rams.
I will see it when I believe it, and I wouldn't hate to see it. Again, out of no awesome. Hate or dislike for the Rams whatsoever, it would be
awesome.
So, like, and it could be like a shootout. Like, imagine we're just writing fanfic at this point, but imagine like a 44-41 Panthers victory.
Last minute field goal. Bryce Young comes out to kick the field goal.
I'd crown him the GOAT. I'd say right there. I'd say he is at minimum a top 10 quarterback of all time. If Bryce Young
I just want
wins,
that in NFL. Like, I want that, the discourse that Jimmy Butler brought to the NBA of like, where do we rank him when he's injured and doesn't play well or doesn't play that well during the regular season, and then in the playoffs turns into Michael Jordan. Like, I want to have that discussion in like quarterback tier list making or quarterback rankings. Like, where does Bryce Young go? I want that to be the case so bad. Oh my gosh, it'd be so funny.
But the Rams will win and win easily.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
After all that. So what I have set up, I don't know if what yours is, because you have a slightly different bracket from me, of course, with our two differences. I have a divisional, and we won't go into predictions here, but my divisional bracket then looks like in the AFC, Broncos hosting the Texans and the Patriots hosting the Jaguars. In the NFC, that would mean the Seahawks hosting the 49ers for me, and the Bears hosting the Rams.
Yeah, for me, it's Bills at Broncos, and then Texans at Patriots, and then Rams at Seahawks, and then Eagles at Bears.
Yep. Any and all of those matchups would be very entertaining.
Yeah.
That is one fun thing about, because we only differed on one game in each conference, and yet it literally entirely changes at all four of the hypothetical divisional matchups. I do like the seeding reworking of the NFL playoffs, where the one seed plays the lowest remaining seed, and what domino effect that can have. That's always just, I do enjoy that about the NFL playoff structure, singularly unique in that aspect across American sports.
Yeah. And before we go, though, we got to shout out Myles Garrett. He broke the sack record.
Shout out to Myles Garrett. Congratulations, man. He deserved it.
He did.
It
was funny. I hated how people were like, oh, Joe Burrow, let him get it. It was like, dude, like, he was in the process of like hugging him. Like, you don't think he would have tackled Joe Burrow in that moment? That's one. Two, Joe Burrow regularly does that to protect his body. Like, that is a regular thing that Joe Burrow does, which he should, right? Where it's like, oh, I'm being sacked. Let me just like fall down so it's not as bad. So anyway, I'm sorry. I just saw that and I was like, come on, guys, let's settle down.
Yeah, no, congratulations, Myles Garrett. Congratulations to all of us for making it through this NFL regular season. We did it again as fans. We do it every year, except for all the NFL fans who died this season. Probably a handful.
Rest in peace. One more year.
Rest in peace to every single person who is identified as an NFL fan who has died.
Bro, that's crazy. There's going to be someone, of the 5 people that watch this, there's going to be someone that watches this who like lost a loved one, and they're going to be like, screw you.
I was saying rest in peace. I'm legit, I was pouring my heart out there.
Legitimately rest in peace.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for your loss. With
We're
that,
sorry for that.
anyway,
with that, go watch Jimmy Butler highlights.
I was going to say
the
Bryce
NFL
Young,
playoffs.
Jimmy Butler.
The NFL playoffs are here, and we're saying that you should watch NBA highlights.
Yeah, dude, Jimmy Butler, dude, on that finals run. Don't even get me started. Just get smoked by the Nuggets, but whatever.
Go listen to Kevin Harlan call Jimmy freaking Butler and get your blood boiling.
Exactly, dude. All right, but like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you guys later.
Peace.